Hello and welcome to a very special quote-unquote live stream of a $350 FFPC season-long draft. My name is Adam Levitan. I'm here with my co-manager in this draft, Evan Silva, also of EstablishTheRun.com. Evan, what's going on tonight?
We don't have much time until this draft starts, so let's dive into some of the topics that we need to discuss for the listeners. Let's start off by just explaining what the league itself is, or the scoring. Okay, it's tight end premium. That means first of all, it's PPR across the board, but it's 1.5 points for tight end receptions. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of thinking, and we can kind of debate this, or we talked about it a little bit earlier. We can kind of debate it while we're on the clock, et cetera, while the draft is going on. But I'm thinking like the top 5 RBs, and then Travis Kelce is like the 1.06 pick. And also I wanted to just explain for the audience, the regular season is weeks 1 through 11. The playoffs are in weeks 12 through 13. This is a large field tournament. Tons of people are in this thing. No trades. So you're really leaning on the waiver wire, and you also really need to account for bye weeks. And because the regular season is weeks 1 through 11 and the playoffs start in week 12, like you're in a world of trouble if you don't have, like let's say you have Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, you have that stack. It gets you, it's very valuable, but you're not going to have that in week 12 because the Chiefs are on a bye in week 12. The Chiefs, the Vikings, the Chargers, and the Cardinals are all on bye weeks in week 12. There's a ton of every week fantasy starters on those teams. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to point that out again, tight end premium, 1.5 PPR for tight ends. And then, we're going to have to kind of downgrade these guys, or at least, use it as a tiebreaker when we're on the clock, when we're looking at drafting Chiefs, Vikings, Chargers, and Cardinals players. We're trying to get first place, bro. We're trying to get first place. We're not trying to finish in 6th. We're not trying to just stay out of last. We are trying to get first.
Yeah. Let me explain to the people the payout structure in this, because I think it's really important. If you win your 12-man league, your little 12-man league, which we're drafting against tonight, I believe you win $1,500 cash, which is nice, but the buy-in's $350. It's not even 5x. The way to get the real money in this format is to qualify for the championship, which runs in weeks 14, 15, 16, qualify for that, and then have the most raw points over that 3-week span added to your average points from the regular season. So in other words, you need to stack. What I want to say is that first place is $250,000 and second place is $30,000. So similar to these outrageously top-heavy DFS payouts that we've seen, this is kind of along those lines, maybe even more exaggerated, where it's extremely optimal to take a high variance approach, to stack, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll be talking about that throughout the draft. I want to be clear, though, this is not stuff that you would think about it in a normal 12-man league if you were like drafting with your buddies, right, Evan? Like, this is not what most people will be thinking about. They're not thinking about buys in week 12 and $250K up top and $30K to second, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, but if you think you're good at fantasy and you want to kind of take your game to the next level in season long, this is the place to do it. FFPC has been running for a really long time. It's like the most respected place for high stakes season long leagues. You can get, I think, 3 of the Football Guys teams for $1,000, and they're valued at $350 a pop. So you kind of get a little discount if you buy the 3-pack, and then and I wanted to talk about a little bit after the playoffs. So the playoffs again are weeks 12 and 13, and then you're in the playoffs to try to qualify for the championship round. Now, weeks 1 through 13, the regular season, weeks 1 through 11, plus the playoffs, weeks 12 through 13, are head-to-head, your traditional format. But then if you advance into the championship round, weeks 14 through 16, you finish top 2 in your league, then it turns into a points league, a total points round. It no longer is head-to-head weekly, and it's, once you qualify for that, if you outscore, like last year, Derrick Henry was, the nuts for this format. A lot of people didn't even start him, it was that Jaguars game. Remember that Thursday night Jaguars game? He really wasn't even a good start in that game. But some people, just put him in their flexes. They didn't have anything better, and he wound up just being the nuts throughout the playoffs or throughout the championship round. We have 20 roster spots. We're going to be making 20 draft picks, and I think that the optimal full roster build is 2 quarterbacks, 7 running backs, 6 wide receivers, 3 tight ends, 1 kicker, 1 defense. I'm also open to only drafting 1 quarterback. It just depends on how the draft is going to go, and taking like 7 running backs and 7 wide receivers as opposed to 7 and 6 or whatever. We're going to have to feel our way out through this. I've only done 1 of these so far this year. I know we're going to do at least 2 more after this for establishtheRun.com. But yeah, any other thoughts? We got 3 minutes.
Yeah, we have 3 minutes to draft. Yeah, I would say that since we're drafting on July 24th, there's a huge edge to keeping some guys on your bench who could be elevated during training camp by injury, et cetera. So it's not like drafting right before the season starts. Instead of having 2 quarterbacks or 2 tight ends or 3 quarterbacks, God forbid, keeping somebody like Chase Edmonds or somebody like that, if the starter goes down, Tony Pollard, et cetera, has way more value now. And there are 10 bench spots in this league. The other thing I wanted to say, Evan mentioned deals you can get on FFPC. If you use the link below, you will get, let me see here, $25 off your first league if you use the ETR link that we have below the video, $25 off your first league. Just click it, make an account. When you're paying for your first league, you'll see a $25 off discount. And $350 is not the lowest. They have leagues, I believe, as low as $35.
Yep.
And then they go up to $18.50. So tell us, we'll do some more of these. Tell us what you guys want to see. We'll certainly try to get an $18.50. People love the high stakes stuff. But anyways, the draft begins in 1 minute. Evan, if you guys can see, you guys should be able to see our screen here. Draft order is up on top. Vikes is first. We are picking at the 1.11 spot in this draft. Evan, what do you think about drafting at 1.11 this season?
Well, first I wanted to mention something that we had discussed before this, before we went on air, is that because we have such deep benches, we're going to be more open than usual to drafting guys that are suspended. We talked about Kareem Hunt. We talked about Chris Herndon. They're like Chris Herndon's ADP sank from like tight end 10 to tight end 18 because of his suspension. Understandably so. I'm not saying that that's wrong, but definitely going to be more willing to take him. And then Kareem Hunt with fresh legs in the second half of the season. And Nick Chubb does not have a clean injury history at all from his college days. Kareem Hunt is going to be a really interesting player when we start to get around like running back number 40. As for 1.011, I don't know. I think it's a difficult place to draft. I think we're going to be looking at George Kittle in the tight end premium. I think we're going to be looking at maybe starting wide receiver. If you can get like Devonta Adams and Juju, that's a sick way to start. Those guys could easily finish 1-2 in the NFL in targets, and now we're starting.
Yep. And draft is officially live, and I can go down here and see the results. Saquon Barkley went at the 1.01 to Vikes.
One first.
I would like us to see us start generating stacks that we like even early. I certainly love Falcon stacks, and I love we talked about 49ers stack. I think is really sneaky too. So no surprises so far. Barkley, McCaffrey, Zeke, 1, 2, 3.
Barkley, McCaffrey, Zeke. Yep, that's as expected. That pretty much happens in every draft. Doesn't even matter what format you're in.
Yep, Alvin Kamara, went at pick 1.04 to Goats. By the way, we're drafting right next to a couple of your boys, a couple of high stakes season long regulars, right, Evan?
Yes, David Hubbard and Nelson Sousa, some of the most experienced season long players. Just kind of legendary in these streets.
Yeah. Do those guys play DFS? Do you know?
I think they dabble in it. I know that David Hubbard is like a big poker player, but Nelson Sousa, is his focus is definitely on season long high stakes. Travis Kelce, there he goes, 1.06.
Yeah,
kind of we're talking about it.
Oh, Tyreek Hill, 1.07.
Wow.
People are excited about Tyreek Hill not being suspended.
Absolutely. I mean, I have him as my wide receiver 5. His ADP in this format is wide receiver 4. Here he goes as the wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take Melvin Gordon out of our queue here. I don't think he can be on our board given the situation. The Chargers, although I don't think they're the sharpest organization, they know not to pay him. And I actually think that they were planning to use Austin Eckler more than maybe other people thought this year anyways.
Quite possible. David Johnson still on the board here.
No, David Johnson went 1.05.
I'm sorry, 1.05.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that takes care of that whole entire first tier of running backs. 1.09, DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're going to have a look here. If you want to go running back, we can. I kind of prefer the Kittle wide receiver route or even wide receiver. Oh, there goes Julio. All right, we're on the clock.
Odell Beckham. We're looking at Odell Beckham and George Kittle, I think.
Yep. I think we're more likely to get on a sneaky stack that can win the 250K by trying to accomplish a 49ers stack. But I certainly think Odell's going to have a monster year.
And I do think there's a chance we could get Odell Beckham on the way back, or at least option to us. I mean, I still have in my first wide receiver tier, I still have Odell Beckham, Juju, Michael Thomas, and Mike Evans all available. Yeah. I say we go George Kittle.
Yeah, because we're going to get one of those wide receivers you just mentioned no matter what on the way back.
Yep.
All right, we're drafting George Kittle. We're anchoring our team around George Kittle. Pick is in. First pick in the history of established to run live streams, George Kittle.
Hey, I love it.
Are these guys talking smack in the chat? I can't even follow it. I got too much going on here.
No, not yet. George Kittle, though, I mean, love the way that – so the 49ers have one of the easiest schedules of opposing pass defenses this year. Complete lack of clarity at the number one wide receiver position. So I think that – and Jimmy Garoppolo coming back. Last year in this system –
hold on. We're on the clock.
Nick Mullins finished top 5 in the NFL in yards per attempt last year.
Love it. Odell and Le'Veon were the picks right before us. We're back on the clock. We have our choice now of Michael Thomas, Juju Smith-Schuster, Mike Evans. My lean would be to Michael Thomas, but I certainly couldn't Juju Smith-Schuster had like a 24% market share of targets last year. I think it can go up. I don't think it's going to spike drastically. It's really hard to get up towards 30% in this league. How do you feel about those three guys, Thomas, Smith-Schuster, Evans?
I think Joe Mixon is another guy potentially consider here.
Yeah, they lost Jonah Williams and Clint Bowling recently. I don't know how much you think that affects Joe Mixon.
Michael Thomas also now has to deal with Jared Cook siphoning a few more targets, but he also has touchdown regression positive touchdown regression coming this year. I'm fine with Michael Thomas. I don't think he's a super high ceiling pick, but I would be fine with him.
And what about Juju?
I think that he's just not as proven in the number one wide receiver role, but I love drafting Juju. So
all right. I think I feel best about Michael Thomas. We got 9 seconds here.
Pull the trigger. Let's do it.
All right. We have started. George Kittle, Michael Thomas. This really isn't the interesting stuff to me. Like the early rounds to me are not the interesting. Like we're really parsing hairs between Michael Thomas and Juju and Joe Mixon, et cetera. And Joe Mixon did go right after us to your boys, Nelson Sousa. And I forget the other guy's name.
Hubbard.
Yeah, Hubbard. Dalvin Cook is someone I like too. He just went also.
Okay.
Yeah, so we come out of this without any running backs, which I'm perfectly fine with.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I like a lot of the middle round running backs. And I think that when it comes back to us in the third round, I bet we might be surprised by some dudes that are still available.
Mm-hmm.
I think we drafted for safety in the first 2 rounds, and I think that that's fine. Michael Thomas doesn't get a whole lot safer than that. George Kittle only has the one big year, but he was prolific as a rookie relative to rookie tight ends historically. So I consider that 2 really big years. And I mean, I think he's a legitimately great player already.
Mm-hmm.
And, the 49ers were unable to run the offense that they wanted to last year. They played slower. They had to. They wanted to increase their variance because they lost, a lot of their good players. They lost their quarterback. The year before that, they were number 2 in the NFL in pass attempts and number 6 in offensive plays. I think they can be a prolific offense this season.
Let me run through the picks here. Since we made our Michael Thomas pick, it went Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, Zach Ertz, Juju Smith-Schuster, and then Mike Evans. It's going to start to get more interesting now, Evan. I think there's way more room to go out on a limb and make picks that you think are right as we get deeper and deeper here. As I said, I think the first couple of rounds kind of speak for themselves, and you're not gaining a huge edge over the competition. This is great, though. In this draft applet, they have Todd Gurley on top, and they have like all these crazy Patrick Mahomes really high, Philip Lindsay really high. That's good. I mean, you shouldn't just give people the stone nuts. Like, you shouldn't have Evan Still as 150 in the draft applet because it just makes it too easy for people. People actually have to have their own rankings and think. By the way, I loaded as much as I could of Evan's top 150, which you can obviously find in the draft kit. I loaded as much as I could into here, but it cut me off very quickly. So Evan actually is going to be on the sticks with the tiers in the top 150. And then we're obviously going to make 240 picks here. I have a bunch of guys that I've been looking at 120 or later that we're going to talk about for the later rounds.
And because it is tight end premium, we also need to be open to drafting another tight end to use in the flex.
Mm-hmm.
So let's definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a huge difference. I mean, if you look at the math, George Kittle only caught 88 balls, quote unquote, only caught 88 balls last year, while Michael Thomas caught, I believe it was like
125, bro.
Yeah, 125. And George Kittle only scored 15 fewer points in this format than Michael Thomas did. I mean, 1.5 makes a huge, huge difference.
Yeah, Melvin Gordon's still available through they're just 2.11.
Yeah.
So people are definitely fearful of the holdout. He goes at the end of the second round.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Next few picks here: Nick Chubb 2.08, James Conner 2.09, and Damien Williams, Melvin Gordon, and now Todd Gurley. Yeah, a lot of risk there with Gurley and Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, right now I have Todd Gurley as RB16. He's been the RB7 according to ADP in this format. So people are kind of sticking to their guns with Todd Gurley.
Mm-hmm. How early is too early for Chris Godwin, Evan? I mean, just inject it straight into my veins.
We'll see, man. Hey, around the 3-4 turn, obviously I'd prefer to get him like late in the 5th.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, remember I got him at 6.11 in the Scott Fish Bowl.
I know, but I feel like
2 quarterback league too, so he gets
right.
Yeah,
yeah, and I wouldn't call 350, nosebleed stakes or high stakes or anything, but I assume that a lot of these guys are in this league are very, very sharp, and they're well aware of the fact that Chris Godwin's going to catch 150 balls this year and score 25 touchdowns. Yeah, just looking at what's left of the first 40 of your top 150 here: Keenan Allen, AJ Green, Devonta Freeman, Derrick Henry, Marlon Mack, Adam Thielen, Steph Diggs, Edelman, Kerryon, Aaron Jones, Tyler Lockett, Chris Godwin. Certainly a lot of good running backs left. I would expect at least one of those to get back to us.
Yep. Julian Edelman is also a guy that's really, really interesting. Over his last 16 games, almost 160 targets. We're coming up here in about 5-6 picks. Amari Cooper goes, Leonard Fournette, T.Y. Hilton, Antonio Brown. I'm working backwards. Then Gurley. Aaron Jones at 3.05. I know you wanted him.
Yeah, love. I actually been working on an article this week. Today's July 24th, by the way. Not sure when you guys are going to watch this, but I was working on an article this week about players who have a third round ADP or later who I think have a chance or a realistic path to be first round picks in 2020. And, Aaron Jones doesn't fit the criteria as someone who went in the fifth round of the draft. Usually first round fantasy picks have first or second round pedigrees in terms of the real NFL draft. But still, I mean, I could still see a very clear path to Aaron Jones being a first round pick in 2020. Yeah, AJ Green at 3.06 is nice. All right, we have 5 picks till our turn. Kerryon Johnson just went. One guy you have on here in your top 150 I would maybe not be interested in is Marlon Mack, just because he's such a zero when they fall behind. I do think the Colts are going to be very good. I guess this is better in this format because you can, if we think they're going to be losing the game, we can put him on the bench. But I would just hate to invest a lot of draft capital in a guy with every time we think the Colts aren't going to play well, Marlon Mack has to go to the bench. You know what I mean?
So we have 3 running backs left in our third tier. I think this is what we're looking at. I want Devonta Freeman at 3.11.
Mm-hmm.
Derrick Henry and Marlon Mack round out that tier. Neither guy is going to catch a ton of passes because of the way that they're used. And Devonta Freeman can catch a lot of passes. So we're at pick 3.08, just went to Keenan Allen for Keenan Allen. And then so we're moving on to 3.09. There goes Adam Thielen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hope we get Devonta Freeman as well.
Yeah.
I really like this Atlanta offense this year, man. I mean,
I do too.
I don't people just are like, hey, we got him.
Bang.
Derrick Henry went.
Get him. Nice.
Yeah, so I'm just going to talk for a second here about this Atlanta offense while we're on the clock. I mean, 4th in yards per play last year, and then they significantly upgrade the offensive line. Brandon Thorne noted that in his article. I think he had them as the 12th best offensive line, which is really strong. Devonta Freeman had a year off to get healthy. Tevin Coleman is gone. They just are loaded on offense and already suffering injuries like they had last year on defense. I believe they played like their first 9 games in domes or indoors, which is historically very good for them. So I'm going to go ahead and make the Devonta Freeman pick here. Let me know what you're thinking coming around the horn here.
Yeah. So again, 1 running back now left in that third tier, Marlon Mack. We should look at the tight ends though, man. I'm surprised that OJ Howard has lasted this long.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter Henry is available. Evan Ingram is available. At wide receiver, top-rated receivers are Stephon Diggs and Julian Edelman.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get a good pick here. I think we decide between Marlon Mack and maybe OJ Howard.